Welcome, everyone. Today we're diving deep into something truly special. We're going to be exploring the concept of forgiveness in Islam, especially during Ramadan.
It's such a powerful time for reflection, isn't it?
Absolutely. And for renewal and forgiveness. We'll be looking at excerpts from Forgiveness in Ramadan, a journey to spiritual renewal. Have you ever thought about how forgiveness can be such a powerful force, not only in our relationship with Allah, but also for our own inner peace?
Yeah, it's woven right into the fabric of Islam. It's a guiding principle that reminds us of Allah's infinite mercy.
So true. And our source highlights this beautifully with a verse from Surah Al-Zumar 39.53. Say, O my servants who have transgressed against themselves by sinning.
Do not despair of the mercy of Allah.
Indeed, Allah forgives all sins.
Indeed, it is He who is the forgiving, the merciful.
Wow.
Such a powerful verse. It speaks to the very core of our faith. No matter what we've done, no matter how far we feel from Allah's grace, forgiveness is always within reach. And Ramadan serves as such a powerful reminder of this.
It's comforting to know that we serve a God who's so forgiving, especially when we stumble or fall short. It makes me think of that story about Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Even though he was the most righteous among us, he sought forgiveness from Allah over 70 times a day.
Really puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah, if he felt the need to seek forgiveness that often, it makes me realize how crucial it is for all of us, no matter how hard we try to be good.
The best of creation still recognizing his own human fallibility.
Exactly. And you know what that brings to mind? The Sayyidul Istighfar.
Oh, such a powerful dua.
Yeah, that's like a direct line to his mercy. It's a way to pour out our hearts and ask for his pardon.
Absolutely. It encompasses so many essential elements of seeking forgiveness, acknowledging our reliance on Allah, confessing our shortcomings, and recognizing his infinite power to forgive. The Arabic text is, Allahumma anta rabbi la ilaha illa anta, halaktani wa ana abduka, wa ana ala adika wa wadika mastatatu, audu bika min shari masanatu, abu laka binimatika alaya, wa abu laka bidhandi fafirli fa innahu yakfiru adtunuba illa anta.
And in English, it translates to, O Allah, you are my Lord. There is no deity except you. You created me, and I am your servant.
I adhere to your covenant and promise as best I can.
Powerful, isn't it? Can you imagine incorporating this dua into your daily routine, especially during Ramadan?
What a beautiful way to start and end your day, acknowledging your need for Allah's forgiveness, and setting the intention for a day filled with seeking His pleasure.
Absolutely. It's one thing to seek forgiveness from Allah, but forgiving others, that can sometimes feel like a whole other challenge.
It's true, we've all been hurt at some point, betrayed, wronged, and those wounds, they can run deep, and it can be so hard to let go of that pain and resentment.
It can feel almost impossible.
Like we're clinging to a life raft in a stormy sea. But what if I told you that clinging, that holding on, it actually weighs us down, prevents us from experiencing true peace and liberation?
I've definitely felt that before. That feeling of being trapped by my own bitterness, it's like a heavy weight, dragging you down, preventing you from moving forward.
But you also know that forgiveness can be incredibly freeing.
It can.
It's important to remember that forgiving someone, it doesn't mean you're condoning their actions or minimizing the harm they've caused. It's not about saying what they did was okay.
So it's more about our own well-being than about excusing the other person's behavior.
You got it. It's about recognizing that holding on to that anger, that resentment, it only poisons us. It doesn't affect the person who wronged us.
So we're choosing to break free from the shackles of the past and move forward with a lighter heart.
That's the idea. And this act of forgiveness, it aligns beautifully with the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He said, show mercy to others and you will receive mercy. Forgive others and Allah will forgive you.
That's beautiful. It's like we're creating a ripple effect of kindness and compassion, starting with ourselves and extending to those around us. And Ramadan, with its focus on spiritual cleansing and renewal, seems like the perfect time to embrace this. Imagine entering Eid with a heart free from the weight of all those grudges and resentment.
A fresh start, a chance to let go of past hurts and step into a brighter future, spiritually and emotionally. A time to reflect on our relationships, mend broken bridges, and extend forgiveness to those who have wronged us.
So how do we actually put this into practice? What are some steps we can take to cultivate forgiveness, both for ourselves and for others? What advice does our source offer?
Well, it starts with sincere tawbah, or repentance. It's about engaging in deep reflection, acknowledging our shortcomings, and sincerely seeking Allah's forgiveness.
I think sometimes we underestimate the power of sincere repentance. It's more than just saying, I'm sorry. It's about genuinely wanting to change.
Right, to turn away from those mistakes.
And commit to doing better in the future.
Tawbah is about transforming our hearts, not just our words. And it's a process that draws us closer to Allah. It opens the door to His infinite mercy.
So sincere tawbah is that first step. What other practical steps does the source suggest?
Another powerful step is making dua for those who have hurt us.
That's interesting. It seems a little counterintuitive, doesn't it, to pray for someone who's caused you pain?
It is. It's about transforming that negativity into something positive, spiritually rewarding. Instead of dwelling on the anger and resentment, we can channel those feelings into prayers, seeking good for the very people who've wronged us.
So we're shifting our perspective, choosing compassion over anger.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to release those negative emotions and cultivate a sense of peace within ourselves.
I love that. It's like we're taking control of our emotional response and choosing to respond with kindness and mercy, even when it feels difficult.
Exactly. And it's not just about making dua for them. The source also talks about writing a letter of reconciliation, even if you never actually send it.
Oh, that's interesting. What's the purpose of writing it if you're not going to send it?
Well, it can be a really powerful tool for processing your emotions, expressing your feelings, finding closure.
So it's more about the internal process of writing it down than about actually confronting the person.
Yeah, it's about letting go of those pent-up emotions, giving yourself permission to heal.
I could see how that could be really beneficial, even if the other person never sees the letter. It's like you're taking back your power and focusing on your own healing.
Exactly. And finally, the source emphasizes the importance of letting go and moving on.
That's often easier said than done, right? Sometimes letting go can feel impossible, like you're being asked to just erase all those hurt feelings, just like that.
It's a process, for sure. It's not always easy, but the rewards of reaching that point, they're immense.
Can you say more about those rewards? What does letting go actually look like?
Well, it's about recognizing that we're all flawed, we're all human, we all make mistakes, and holding on to anger and resentment, it just keeps us trapped in the past. It keeps us from experiencing true spiritual growth and inner peace.
So it's about choosing peace over prolonged pain.
Right. It's about understanding that forgiveness doesn't mean condoning their actions. It means freeing yourself from that emotional baggage that comes with holding on to resentment.
That's an important distinction. It's not saying that what they did was okay. It's about choosing to release yourself from that burden.
You got it. And this whole conversation about forgiving others, it's got me thinking about forgiving ourselves.
That's a good point. We've talked about seeking Allah's forgiveness and extending forgiveness to others. But what about forgiving yourselves? We can be our own harshest critics.
Absolutely. It's fascinating how we often hold ourselves to these impossibly high standards. We struggle to let go of past mistakes.
Yeah, and we get stuck in this cycle of guilt and self-reproach, even when we've sincerely repented.
And that self-judgment can actually hinder our spiritual growth. Islam teaches us that Allah is constantly forgiving. So shouldn't we extend that same mercy to ourselves?
That makes you wonder, what does it really mean to forgive ourselves? Is it just letting go of that guilt, or is there something deeper?
I think it involves acknowledging our imperfections, accepting that we're human, accepting that we're prone to make mistakes, and then making a conscious effort to learn and grow.
So it's not about erasing the past, but rather transforming it into a source of wisdom and motivation.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that Allah's forgiveness is a gift. And by embracing that gift, we free ourselves to become better versions of ourselves.
I love that. It reframes forgiveness as a journey of self-discovery and growth.
Right. And this makes me think about self-compassion that's become increasingly popular in recent years. Do you see any connection between self-compassion and that Islamic principle of self-forgiveness?
Definitely. Self-compassion encourages us to treat ourselves with kindness, with understanding, just as we would treat a friend who's struggling. That aligns beautifully with the Islamic teachings of mercy and self-care.
It's about recognizing that we're all on a journey, and that journey includes stumbling blocks and setbacks. It's about being patient with ourselves, offering ourselves encouragement, and celebrating our progress, no matter how small.
And that's especially important during Ramadan. We're pushing ourselves spiritually. We're striving to be better versions of ourselves. But it's crucial to remember that this process takes time and effort. There will be days when we fall short, and that's okay.
Ramadan is a marathon, not a sprint. Just like a runner needs to pace themselves, replenish their energy, we need to be mindful of our own spiritual and emotional well-being throughout the month.
I like that analogy. It reminds us that self-forgiveness isn't a one-time thing. It's an ongoing practice, a constant companion on our spiritual journey.
It's about cultivating that inner voice of compassion and understanding, that voice that reminds us of Allah's mercy, encourages us to extend that same mercy to ourselves.
Thinking about the challenges of forgiving others, do you have any insights on how to navigate those situations where forgiveness feels really hard?
It's a great question, and it's something that a lot of people struggle with. Forgiving someone who's hurt us deeply, it can feel incredibly challenging, sometimes even impossible.
It's like we're being asked to surrender something precious, to let go of that pain that's become so familiar.
And that surrender can feel really vulnerable. It's like we're exposing ourselves to the possibility of being hurt again.
Which is why it's so important to remember that forgiving someone, it doesn't mean condoning their actions or minimizing the harm that they've caused.
Right, it's not about letting them off the hook. They're still accountable for their actions, both in this life and the next.
So forgiveness doesn't negate justice or accountability.
No, not at all. It's about acknowledging the wrong that was done, but also choosing to release yourself from the grip of anger and resentment.
So it's a choice we're making for our own well-being, not for their benefit.
Yes, and it's a choice that often takes time and patience and a lot of inner work.
One of the challenges I've faced with forgiving others is that fear that if I forgive them, it's like they'll think they've gotten away with it, like there were no consequences.
That's a common concern, but remember, forgiveness isn't about letting them off the hook. They're still accountable.
So forgiveness and justice can coexist.
Absolutely. It's about acknowledging the wrong while also choosing to release yourself from that anger and resentment.
It's about reclaiming our own emotional freedom, recognizing that holding on to that bitterness, it only hurts us.
Exactly. It's a powerful act of self-care. It's about prioritizing your peace of mind, recognizing that you deserve to live free from those shackles of past hurt.
Love that perspective, breaking free from the chains of that negative experience, allowing ourselves to move forward with a lighter heart.
And that lightness creates space for compassion, understanding, even empathy for that person who hurt us.
That image really resonates with me. It highlights how forgiveness isn't just an external act. It's an internal liberation. It allows us to connect with others on a deeper level.
It's about recognizing our shared humanity, acknowledging that we all make mistakes, and extending that same grace and understanding to others that we hope to receive ourselves.
This makes me think about restorative justice, which focuses on repairing the harm and rebuilding relationships rather than punishment.
That's a great connection. Restorative justice emphasizes dialogue, accountability, and finding ways to move forward in a way that benefits everyone involved.
And that aligns with the Islamic principles of forgiveness and reconciliation.
For sure. Islam encourages us to seek peace, mend broken relationships, and create a society based on compassion and understanding.
Makes you wonder, if we were to apply those principles to our personal relationships, what would that look like?
It might involve having those honest conversations, expressing your pain and disappointment, while also acknowledging their humanity.
Seeking a sincere apology, not as a way to punish them, but as a step towards healing.
And setting healthy boundaries, recognizing that forgiveness doesn't mean allowing yourself to be hurt repeatedly.
It's about finding a way to move forward in a way that honors both our own needs and the needs of the other person.
Yes. Seeking a resolution that promotes understanding, compassion, and a sense of peace and closure.
This has been a really thought-provoking conversation. We've really journeyed through those complexities of forgiveness, exploring its different dimensions and implications.
Forgiveness is not a simple act. It's a multifaceted process. It requires intentionality, courage, and a deep commitment to our spiritual and emotional well-being.
And forgiveness isn't always possible, or even advisable. There are situations where it might be unsafe or unhealthy to reconcile.
Absolutely. Prioritize your safety and well-being. Sometimes that means creating distance from those who've hurt you.
But even in those situations, we can still work towards forgiveness within ourselves, letting go of that anger, that resentment.
It's about finding a way to make peace with the past. We can't change what happened, but we can choose how we respond to it.
It's about reclaiming our power, choosing to focus on healing and growth.
It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
This whole conversation has really highlighted the power of forgiveness, not just in Ramadan, but in every aspect of our lives.
It's a journey, a lifelong practice, cultivating compassion, understanding, a willingness to let go.
And the key takeaway, forgiveness is about recognizing that we're all imperfect. We all make mistakes. And extending grace to ourselves and others is essential.
Beautifully said. It's about embracing that imperfection, allowing ourselves and others the space to grow and evolve.
We're constantly reminding ourselves that we're all works in progress. We're striving toward our best selves. But the journey is just as important as the destination.
And that journey is often paved with forgiveness, forgiving ourselves, forgiving others, seeking forgiveness from Allah.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've unlocked a treasure chest of wisdom about the power of forgiveness to heal old wounds and create new beginnings.
It's been an honor to explore this with you. We've both gained a deeper appreciation for this essential spiritual practice.
Now, before we move to our final part, I just want to remind everyone that we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore when it comes to the power of forgiveness.
We'll be diving deeper in our next segment, exploring even more practical tips and inspiring stories about forgiveness in action.
Welcome back to our deep dive into forgiveness.
It's great to be back for this final part of our exploration.
You know, over these past 2 parts, we've really gone deep into seeking forgiveness from Allah, extending forgiveness to others, and embracing self-forgiveness.
Uncovering all those layers, each facet of forgiveness seems to build on the others, creating this powerful force for spiritual growth and inner peace.
Like a sacred triangle.
Yeah, each point supporting and strengthening the others.
And in the center,
a profound sense of peace, liberation, and spiritual growth. But there's one element we haven't talked about yet that I think is crucial to this whole process.
oh, I'm curious, what's that?
Empathy.
Empathy, that ability to step into someone else's shoes, to understand their perspective, even if we don't condone their actions. I can see how that ties into forgiveness.
It's like a bridge of compassion. It allows us to see the humanity in those who've hurt us.
And that could be so powerful, especially when it comes to forgiving those who've wronged us. Because when we can understand those factors that contributed to their behavior, their own pain, their own struggles, it can soften our hearts and make forgiveness feel a little bit more attainable.
Exactly. It doesn't excuse their actions, of course not. But it helps us to see them as flawed human beings, just like us, navigating this complex life.
We shift from a place of judgment to a place of understanding. And from that place of understanding, forgiveness can blossom. When I can tap into empathy, it makes forgiveness feel less like a burden and more like an act of liberation.
I love that. Liberation for you and for the other person. And, empathy doesn't just help us forgive others, it also helps us forgive ourselves.
That's true. When we can extend that same compassion to our own past mistakes, recognize that we were doing our best with the knowledge that we had at the time, it helps us let go of that self-judgment and embrace self-acceptance.
We're offering ourselves the same grace and understanding that we'd offer a loved one.
We're acknowledging our own humanity, our capacity for error.
And we choose kindness instead of condemnation.
And that self-compassion, that gentleness towards ourselves, it creates fertile ground for healing and for growth. Because when we're not beating ourselves up for the past, we can focus on becoming better, the best versions of ourselves, the versions that Allah created us to be.
We release the weight of the past and step into the present with hope and possibility. And from that space, amazing things can happen.
You've woven together so many threads: forgiveness, empathy, self-compassion, spiritual growth. It's given me a lot to think about.
Me too. It reminds me of a story about a man who sought forgiveness from someone who had wronged many years ago.
Oh, I love a good story. Tell me more.
This man, he carried the burden of his past for decades. It weighed so heavily on him. It affected his relationships, his peace of mind, everything.
It must have been a heavy weight to carry for so long.
It was. He had even tried to make amends, but he was met with rejection and anger. It seemed like the wound would never heal.
So what happened? What made him try again after all that time?
Well, he had been reflecting on forgiveness, especially during Ramadan, and he realized that holding on to this conflict was preventing him from experiencing true peace. He was holding himself hostage to the past.
Imprisoned by his own guilt and shame.
Exactly. He reached a point where the pain of holding on, it outweighed the fear of reaching out, so he decided to try. He contacted the person, not expecting forgiveness, but hoping to express his remorse, to make a real attempt at reconciliation.
That takes courage.
It does, and you know what? The person was open to hearing him out.
Really? After all those years?
Yes. It turned out the other person had also been carrying the burden of that hurt, and they were yearning for closure. They were both trapped in their own prisons of pain.
It's like forgiveness creates this ripple effect. touching everyone.
One person's willingness to let go can create healing and reconciliation. They had this heartfelt conversation, tears were shed, apologies were offered and accepted, and finally, after all those years, this conflict was resolved. A testament to the power of forgiveness.
Even after years of pain
Yep,
and separation.
it's never too late to seek forgiveness or to offer it,
And to be open to forgiving those who've wronged us, even when it hurts.
because holding on to that anger and resentment, it just keeps the cycle of pain going. It keeps that wound open, and it prevents real healing.
We end up imprisoning ourselves alongside the person who hurt us.
And by choosing to forgive, we unlock the doors and set ourselves free, and them too,
Forgiveness is an act of liberation.
for both the giver and the receiver. It's a gift. We give it to ourselves as much as we give it to others.
It creates space for healing, for growth, for new possibilities.
In our relationships and in our lives.
This has been an incredible journey. Into the world of forgiveness, we've explored so much: the divine origins, the psychological benefits, its role in relationships, and its power to heal and create new beginnings.
It's been a privilege exploring this with you. We've gained a deeper appreciation for this essential practice.
And I hope our listeners have too.
Forgiveness is a journey, and Ramadan is the perfect time to begin with intention and purpose. It's a time for reflection, for renewal, for letting go, and embracing all His mercy.
Beautifully said. Remember, everyone, this journey is best shared, so we encourage you to continue exploring the power of forgiveness, not just during Ramadan, but always.
Share this deep dive. Let's spread this message of compassion, understanding, and reconciliation.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it insightful and inspiring. May Allah grant us all the strength to forgive.
Ameen.
Before we go, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives like this one. We're here to support you on your journey of learning, growth, and discovery. Until next time, peace be upon you.
And upon you be peace.